Hey guys, this is going to be the start of our advanced video series where I kind of talk about, more challenging techniques, and this is going to be kind of our bonus point assignments or part of it. And first off, this first week, we're going to be kind of talking about how to start developing vibrato in your playing and in your practicing. Now, there are many ways to do vibrato right and many ways to do vibrato wrong, and different teachers will insist on like this is the right way, this is the best way. There really is no like one like universal this is how you have to do it. Everyone really has different opinions. Now there are ones that are universal, like this is not how you do it, and I'm going to try and touch on bits of those here and there with you guys. I also want to add, if you have a private teacher and they're working with you on vibrato, go ahead and follow their advice. That one-on-one instruction is going to get you a lot further than anything I'm going to teach you in a video. So I'll be showing you exercises to kind of develop, not magically learn, because vibrato is not something you just learn how to do. It's something that you kind of start to get the foundations of, and you build it up as you go. It's not something you're going to get in a day. It takes some time. It takes some practice time. And then once you've got it, it's part of like your warm up to continue developing and make sure you continue to master. So I'll be going through some of these techniques with each of your instruments and just exercises you can work on, hopefully put into your practice routine and start to develop on your own. Okay, cello and basses. I'm going to be kind of teaching you guys in one group here, since our vibrato technique is very similar. Bass, you're just going to have to kind of overdo the techniques I'm showing you, because keep in mind your instrument is much bigger. It's going to require a little bit more power and movement, but as far as like the basic foundation of the technique, it's basically the same exact thing. No pun intended. First things first, the first exercise I'm going to show you are actually ones you don't even need your instrument to do. The first thing, just to kind of get the idea of like the motions that your hand is going through, and this is one I think I've shown most of you all in class. The way our left hand should feel, a lot of teachers will say this, the movement that our arm is doing in order to achieve vibrato is kind of like if you're like you've got like a doorknob in your hand. I'm going to use this jar of candy. Here's an example. Like here's our doorknob, reaching out to it and kind of doing this motion back and forth like this. And then as we're doing this, we can kind of imagine the easiest finger to kind of picture doing vibrato, our strongest one for it, is actually our second finger. If we kind of just imagine as we're moving there being a string right there where our second finger is, that's kind of a good foundation of how our hand is actually moving while it's on the string. Another exercise, and this one's actually really, really good for bass players as well, it also works for cellos, is you take your left arm is obviously when doing the vibrato, kind of put your fingers together. When you put your fingers together, your second finger is going to be the longest. Put that up against kind of like your collarbone right here, or just underneath it, wherever it's comfortable. And notice like my arm is naturally just kind of going into that like that playing position, like when we've got our cello, we want to keep our elbow elevated. All I've done is just bring it to a contact point on myself, and then from here I'm just going to take my arm and my hand, let me move that out of the way actually, there, and I'm just going to move it up and down. And this is kind of the first general like motion that our arm is going to be doing on our string. It's just very, very fast like this. Okay, from here we can kind of start talking about how those little silly exercises we just did without our instruments kind of translates to actually doing vibrato on our instrument. And we'll kind of start to really feel those movements we talked about as we really start to clean this up and develop our the vibrato sound we want. The first exercise that we can actually do on our instrument is what we call the glissando exercise, and this is a technique that works across all the different instruments. And if you remember glissando, we've done it in a few pieces of music, or you've probably discovered this on your own whenever you were just messing around or wanting to aggravate a family member or something like that, which is whenever you took your second finger, or just any finger. I prefer my second finger. It's, usually the strongest finger on our hand. It's also the one that's lined up behind our thumb while we're playing. And that's whenever you were taking your bow. Let's see if I can play around my desk here. And just sliding up and down our instruments like that. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this really aggravating and fun technique on our instrument, sliding up and down. And what we're going to do is while we're playing, we're going to slowly start making the distance we're traveling up and down our neck smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until we focus just on one singular note. And once we've gotten to that one singular note, we're still going to try and use that glissando to travel up and down, but we're going to keep ourselves focused on one spot. So our thumb isn't actually moving anymore. Our thumb is going to plant just behind our second finger, and we're going to be moving back and forth. Because the way glissando is actually working, what's actually happening whenever we're doing a glissando, vibrato. Sorry, I've been saying glissando this whole time. When we've been playing, what's happening when we're doing vibrato is our finger is actually taking in string, because when we move up the string, we go up in pitch. When we go down the string, we're going lower in pitch. Vibrato is just that happening in a very, very small, very, very fast space, where you're just sliding up or just rolling up to this part of your finger and then rolling back to the back part of your finger. So let me set my cello down so I can do this without fear of it falling. So really all that's happening is we are moving. So here's my second finger. I'm going to keep both fingers up so I don't get in trouble with your parents or the principal. So whenever you're doing a vibrato, you're rolling basically your finger from this part here over to this part. So here's your string. You're just rolling back and forth. And you can see, like, whenever you roll up, you're getting higher in pitch. Whenever you roll down, you're going lower in pitch. So here's what that glissando, I'm not gonna be able to keep these two straight after the quarantine's starting to get to my head. The glissando exercise, here's what this is going to kind of look like, and you can practice it trying to narrow this down and start perfecting your vibrato. All right, now on to our next exercise we can slowly start driving our parents and siblings insane with. This one I like to call the siren vibrato, and it goes back to what I was just talking about, how our fingers are just rocking on the strings from one edge to the other, and we're going to be doing that basically in one spot, just very, very slowly. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a spot. I prefer doing this in fourth position. If we remember, fourth position is when our first finger goes up to that E. So second finger is going to be here on F natural. This is personally where I find vibrato is like the easiest to practice, just because it's like right here next to you. You're not having to like lift up here or anything. It's kind of nice and comfortable, and you can really focus on just getting that tone and sound that you want. So here in fourth position, we'll be on, actually let's be on the D string. So we've got, so here's B flat. And what we're going to do is we're going to just start with our finger tilted all the way back, so we're on the inside edge of our second finger here, playing kind of like on the low B flat side. And then what we're going to do, slowly, just bowing this slowly, we're just going to roll our finger forward up to the outside edge of our second finger. So slowly, that's just and so we can practice this as like half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we slowly start kind of turning it into quarter notes. I'm kind of in a confined space. It's kind of hard to bow. And then once we kind of feel comfortable, like that motion's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, maybe we can try eighth notes. And then we move up to 16th notes. And so on and so forth until you've done it. So remember, when it comes to like this and the glissando, just any vibrato technique, we always want to make sure we're nice and relaxed. Whenever we start tensing up and trying to force the vibrato out, that's whenever we start really wearing ourselves out. So key is, remember, our shoulders, make sure they're nice and relaxed. We don't want to hurt ourselves or wear ourselves out just trying to practice this. So remember, relax your arm. Don't try to force this. Again, I talked about this at the beginning of the video. Remember, vibrato is something that we develop, not something that you learn. So if you're doing this and it's not sounding right, it's day one. It's fine. Like you've got time to learn this. Like these are exercises to develop your vibrato, not, hey, here's how you do it. Because it's probably not going to work the first time around. So, patience is really, really important here. Okay. Let's try and see if we can do the siren exercise together. It'll go like this. This is what it looks like in practice. Okay, this last exercise is actually something I learned from Mr. Buck. This is more of an exercise for those of you who've kind of already figured out vibrato and you've been implementing it some in your playing and you're really looking to kind of refine it more. What this exercise does is it kind of helps you, really clean up your vibrato sound and figure out exactly how much vibrato you need, because it is possible to play with too much vibrato. So what this exercise is going to entail, again, we're going to go to that fourth position, like B flat or somewhere in there. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with just a solid tone, no vibrato, just B. Like just hold, get a nice strong sound on that B, just back and forth. And what we'll slowly start doing is we'll just add a little bit of vibrato. Just, where it's just like a little tremor. And from there, we'll build it more and more and more. And what the goal is to try to do is take this vibrato and just make it like as ridiculous as possible to where it's just too much, right? So we're getting almost complete half steps in there, just back and forth. Again, making sure we're relaxed while doing this. You really want to make sure you've got a solid foundation in your shoulder, pulling back on that, not trying to squeeze and force the note with your wrist. And once you've got too much, start to dial it back until you've got that nice tone you're looking for. So this is what this exercise will look like. Okay, hopefully these exercises will give you enough to work on for this first week. Again, this is something that really especially that last exercise for those of you who, you're doing pretty good with vibrato. This is almost something that you can do, every time you practice. Vibrato is something you should, continue to make sure you're refining and you're developing so you can always be playing with a good sound. Couple last little tips that I'll give you before we're done here. Keep in mind, this is something I've talked about. Remember, on our instrument, the higher we go, and by the higher, I mean the lower to the floor, higher in pitch we go on our fingerboard. Remember, the notes are getting closer and closer together, which if we remember how vibrato works, vibrato is taking in more string and then less string, just back and forth. Your vibrato motion actually needs to get smaller and smaller and smaller the further we go up. Because if we think about it, like the notes are getting closer and closer and closer and closer together. So if we're doing the same amount of movement that we're doing up here, down here, our vibrato range, kind of like we discovered when we were doing like the crazy motion in that last exercise. If we're doing that like here, that's whenever it's starting to get silly. So remember, we need more movement down here than we do up here. Take these exercises, try them with different fingers. We've been doing it with the second finger because it's the strongest. Once we feel comfortable with the second finger, we really, really need to kind of like work on the other fingers as well. One last tip I will say, whenever we're working with our pinky finger is the hardest to get a good like vibrato sound out of. Typically what cellists will do whenever we're doing pinky vibrato is they'll take the first two fingers off. You can't really do vibrato with all four fingers down. In fact, like when you do vibrato first, second, and even third, sometimes you'll take the other fingers off just so you can kind of isolate that and you get that nice pivot motion. Pinky is really too small of a finger to do it properly. So pinky finger, definitely have your third finger down with it to kind of give it a little extra support to work on it. Yeah, pinky will be the hardest to develop. Okay, hopefully this gives you enough to work on this week and then like for on and forever because we want to, keep practicing and developing this. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or send me an email, talk to me during our office hours, like whatever. Stay safe. I hope to see you guys eventually.